Thanks for doing this, Peri. So I have Peri.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, so Peri and I had the opportunity of meeting today.
Yes.
Randomly, and somehow I got you into doing I'm in a Car. So now
you twisted my arm.
I don't feel like I twisted that hard. So I have Peri Shaw doing I'm in a Car today. Thank you for doing it and coming on the show.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem. Peri's a noted author and a sales consultant. And for those of the audience that don't know kind of who you are, can you give us a little kind of intro in terms of, what you've been up to, where you came from, and what you're doing these days?
Okay. How about I start where I came from, so we'll go sort of historically.
Yeah,
Does that
great.
work?
Yeah, for sure. I messed that up.
I came from the world of education first, because this will connect, I think, later, and developed a model of education that worked with which was an interesting discovery on my part. I was an action researcher and discovered that questions...
Sorry, you said you're an action researcher?
Yeah.
No wonder we get along. I'm an action junkie.
There you go. Anyway, so an action researcher, meaning that I was testing to see what actually caused the students to perform better.
Cool.
And I found out that questions actually caused the students to perform better.
Awesome.
And this was long before coaching existed. And consistently being able to get very high class averages, 80%. Which is very unusual to have that kind of high.
Right.
And ended up teaching other teachers and getting grants from the government, and then teaching professors how to teach and teaching at conferences. Met during one of my presentations, someone from the corporate world came up to me and said, "You got to take this to corporate. You have no idea what you're sitting on." And I said, No. I'm a career educator. No way. And they said, "No, come on, just..." So they
twisted your arm.
They twisted my arm. And then 6 weeks, 1 day a week over the summer, I worked with them and training, coaching, helping them improve performance. Well, at the end of the 6 weeks, they doubled their sales.
Shut up.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I was surprised.
You're like, damn, I should have charged more.
Yeah, right. And so, as a result of that, that year of teaching, I was teaching during the day. I was also teaching teachers during my day, right? I got a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And then I had 3 cell phones in my car. I would leave school, go to a parking lot in a park, and I would be coaching these executives across the country to help them, continue to have greater growth. And then at the end of the year, I went, I can't do this anymore. I can't do both.
And 3 cell phones. That just
3 cell phones. And I also partner in a business. So before that, I had a lot going on at that point in time. And I decided, okay, I'm going to take a sabbatical and pursue this thing of teaching and coaching in the business world.
Cool.
And let's put it this way. Haven't looked back. Actually, until this year, I kept up my teaching license 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, and so that's where I came from.
Right.
And then what do I do now is I've continued down that path. I've really gotten into the neuroscience of sales and what causes people to make their buying decisions.
Which is unbelievably fascinating.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And also continuing to develop my my world of coaching and how it applies in the world of business to get better results.
Right.
And written a few things.
Right.
I wrote a book in the field of education, but I've also written several books in the world of business. I'm currently writing a book with one of my clients. Really neat story. I've worked with them the last 4.5, almost 5 years now. And how the coaching has had a major impact in their company and their results, which is really awesome. I'm a multi-award winning business author now. I have 3 awards, global awards.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's a neat world.
That is a neat world.
I love it.
So just quickly on this book thing. So I asked Peri earlier today how long it took her to write her first book, and I'm sitting here writing my first book. I just actually finished a 5,000 word summary to apply for a publishing award, and I'm 3 years deep. I've had 3 kids in 3 years, but I'm 3 years deep writing.
That's a good excuse for.
Sure. It's what happened.
If you didn't have the kids, you could probably do it in the same length of time that I do.
Well, I mean, and maybe I still might even. So anyway, I asked Peri, thinking that her first book was like 5 years in the making, and then you got better at. She turns to me, 5 days. I was like, what the fuck? You did it in 5 days. And
5 days.
And then I think I had probably one of the most valuable 5 minutes of my life preceding that, because I was like, how? And you were gracious enough to tell me, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you sales coaching. You know, I think a lot of people, or coaching generally speaking,
Yes.
there's a lot of different connotations that come along with that word.
Yes.
You know, I think a lot of people would have a, you know, stereotypical angry head coach of a football team pop into their minds when they hear coaching.
Yeah.
You know?
To me, that's not effective coaching.
and by no means was I saying it
Does
was.
it get results? Yes, but it's not effective.
Right, and then
You can get better results otherwise.
Right. So then other coaching, I've heard, and I know people have stereotypes around it being pretty fluffy and, you know, waste of time and this kind of stuff. So I'm just curious if you could just give the audience a bit of perspective on what coaching is to you.
Yes.
And why it is such a powerful tool. Because I believe in it wholeheartedly.
Yes.
I just know there's a lot of different perspectives on what it could be.
Okay. Some coaching is fluffy. All right. I'll put that out there.
Great.
It's not the kind of coaching I do. I'm a firm believer that... Am I against fluffy? No, but it's not my preferred choice. To me,
it's very diplomatic of you. Yeah. Hey, if you're a fluffy coach, that's cool, but just I don't do that.
Yeah. To me, coaching is about specifics, and when I say specifics, it's about actually getting into someone's thinking. And someone might go, "Oh, well, that's therapy." No, it's not. I'm trying to find out the thinking behind the behavior, because if I change the thinking that's behind the behavior will automatically change.
Brilliant.
If I focus on changing the behavior, I become a behavior cop. I don't want to do that.
Right.
And so as a leader, or as someone partnering with someone to help them get to where they want to go, it's about drilling down to the thinking that's behind what they're doing. And that will help shift things.
Which is, when you presented the idea of discover the perception.
Yes.
I was like, well, how the heck do you do that? And then you provided a few examples, and I was just like, oh, that is brilliant. And I loved the one example around, specifically in the sales coaching realm, of asking our team one-on-one.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of one conversation you had last week that you liked or didn't like, that you want to share with me?
Yes.
And then leave it at that.
And then you drill down into that conversation.
Which is magical.
Because the reality is, and coaching is all about becoming aware of people's knowledge gaps and skill gaps. Coaching is about developing that skill. And that as you coach, as you observed, you quickly discover what the knowledge gaps are. Fill those knowledge gaps. And it is about asking questions, but not only asking questions. If the person doesn't have a knowledge gap, yes, all questions. But if they do have a knowledge gap, you don't leave them stranded.
Right. You're like, Google.
Yeah, figure that one out for
Great
yourself.
resource. Yeah, check out Google.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Cool place to turn around in.
Wow, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Random.
Yeah. It looks like we've come across a Buddhist temple of some kind. In the middle of the country, nowhere. Yeah.
And I had no idea. That's a very serene experience.
Actually,
there for a
very
moment.
cool. I might come back.
Yeah. Okay, so then that's cool in terms of what coaching is, in terms of coaching's about developing skill, developing people, finding knowledge gaps and skill gaps, and then finding the thoughts behind the behavior, and then helping with the knowledge gaps and thought gaps to be able to change the behavior.
Right. It's all about the neurological connections
Which is
making.
Beautiful.
Because it's not about, if a leader sits there and tells them stuff, I mean, anybody, if you sit there and tell them stuff, have you ever had the experience that when you tell somebody something that they don't do it as a leader?
That sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah. And that's because it's in order to do something requires a neural network. And Jeffrey Schwartz has done research in the fact that as you ask questions,
What was the name of the person, sorry?
Jeffrey Schwartz. He's a neuroscientist from the United States.
Great. Shout out to Jeffrey Schwartz.
Yeah, okay. And when you ask questions, you actually build that neural network inside the brain. If they don't have a neural network, how are they supposed to do it? It's like creating something in a void. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't actually happen.
So as you ask the question, you make those neurological connections, help them do that.
It's interesting you say that too, and it makes me think of Daniel Pink did a piece to Sell Us Human. Right?
Yes.
And he talked about inner dialogue.
Yes.
And how some people have negative dialogue. Lots of us have negative dialogue.
Yeah.
Some of us have some positive dialogue, reinforcing dialogue.
Yeah.
And he said, when sometimes
one dominates and another in our perception.
Yeah, right,
in our perception.
right.
Yeah.
And then, but he said the most powerful was the interrogative dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to do this?
Yes.
Not can I do this? I can do this. I can't do this. How am I going to do this? Which triggers all these neural networks.
Yes.
Which is super cool.
Yeah. Options. That's the reason why options are so important in coaching. Looking at options.
Tell me more about that.
Typically when you coach somebody, what will happen is, if they're struggling with it, they will either see no options or only one option.
Right.
Somebody whose perception is wider will see multiple options. And so the goal of a coach is to help them see multiple options. Because if I only have one recipe that I'm able to cook, no matter what's in the cupboard, I'm only going to be able to create one thing.
Right.
But if I have multiple recipes, then I'll be able to do, different scenarios.
That's a neat analogy.
So that when they're out there doing things, you want them to have more choices than just one.
I love it. So what do you say to leaders who are in a position to coach, who either A, don't have the time to do it, because I've heard that lots.
Yes.
Or B, don't understand the value of taking a moment to slow down, to get together, to be able to speed up. Because one of the things for me, I'd known for like 5 years that one step back for 2 steps forward. I was like, okay, where do I take my, but I was like, how the F do I do that? What do I actually need to do to make that a reality?
Yeah.
And it became a bit more evident to me when I realized context is super important with communication and team, and a lot of things that I believe to be true, not everybody else believes to be true. And in very crazy instances, which I thought was remarkably obvious, not being the case. Yeah. So what do you say to leaders that either don't have the time? Don't have the time It really is don't make the time for it. Yes. And of course, don't make the time for it if your goal is not to grow your business. If your goal is to grow your business, the research shows, independent source, executive sales council, they show that 17 to 19% increase in sales is what you can expect if you're doing sales coaching. Why would you not make time for that? It's the what other one lever can you push?
It's the one behavior any organization can ask their leaders to engage in that will have the biggest impact on their business. The leader doing paperwork or something else is not going to drive the business to the same degree. We've been able to see organizations double, sometimes triple. Once we've seen somebody more than quadruple their results simply by engaging in sales coaching.
That's awesome.
It's possible. It's just a question of making the time. And part of it is learning how to delegate, because part of coaching is delegating to others by giving them the opportunity. Because most people, if you give them an opportunity, they see that as part of their growth and development.
Right.
That's part of delegation. So delegate, you have to stay close to it to make sure that they're doing it well and monitor to make sure it gets done. But delegate, that gives you back the time. And then it gives your team development opportunities. Great balance.
Yeah, that's huge. And when you say it like that, it seems so remarkably simple. So what?
It's simple, but not easy.
Well, and that's usually the best ideas, right? Are usually simple.
Yeah. Exactly.
So then when it comes to some of the common symptoms that you see in organizations that either are coaching but not doing it properly or aren't coaching, what are some of the things that and the reason I'm asking this question is for people that are watching, if a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders are watching this type of stuff. Yeah. So what would they see in their day-to-day that would be like a signal that, hey, we need to get coaching figured out?
Well, there's multiple things.
Sure.
There's actually 10 ways to measure it. One is sales should be on an incremental increase on an ongoing basis because you're continually improving.
Right. So if you're flat, if you're stagnated or even declining,
flat, there's something wrong with your sales coaching. Okay. Or the market is going down considerably.
Right.
All right. The other things that you can look at is how much do you know, if you're the leader and the decision maker of what's going on in your organization, what do you know from your sales team as to the market changes that are happening? If you don't know about those market changes, the coaching is not as effective as it could be, because
Right.
the sales team are the experts of what's happening currently in your marketplace.
Because they're on the front line.
They're on the front line.
So is the question more around how many lessons have you learned about marketplace shifts or changes in the last 12 months? And if the answer is
Actually,
0,
they,
then there's an issue.
They may not even relate to that question.
Right.
So the question might be even simpler than that. It might be as simple as, what patterns have you noticed that clients are complaining about? What patterns have you noticed that they're doing more of or less of?
Right.
And then ask those kinds of questions so that you can hear. And be very, if you as a leader are perceiving that there might be something happening, I've had different clients have that, ask the team to start asking those questions and be able to respond in a very short period of time to those needs. I've actually had a client who did that and won Product of the Year as a result.
That's awesome.
Part of it is being responsive, and coaching allows you to be responsive.
That's cool. So then, when you got started in this whole thing,
Yes.
20 years ago,
Yes.
is there any kind of like, I wish I had known then what I know now, kind of mantras that you...
I see everything as an evolution, and everything is perfect the way it is. What do I wish I... Actually, it's funny. I really perceive everything as perfect as it is.
But if there was... so if there's something you could go tell a young leader that you've learned over the last 20 years.
Oh, if I could tell something, share something with a young leader, learn to ask your team questions. That, I think, is the single most important thing for a young leader to do. Because too often a leader thinks they know all the answers. And the reality is that, one, doesn't motivate the team.
Yeah, my team's watching. They're like, yeah, Rob, shut up. Start asking questions. I'm like,
there you go. But it's a partnership.
yeah, that's cool.
You know, you're working on their development, and quite frankly, they're working on your development, even though you may not know it. They're really working on your side and want you to do better. And sometimes just by opening up that door and allowing them to share ideas with you by asking a question can help you do that much better.
Well, it's really interesting you bring that up too, because earlier you were talking about a certain number of behaviors that a leader can do to create trust in a team.
Yes.
I think there was like 50 or something like
There's
that.
50, yeah.
But there was one that consistently came up as like the most important.
Yes.
So could
90 percentile every single time.
Can you let us know what that one thing is?
The one thing that turns up every single time in the 90 percentile, whenever I do the research, and this is over 20 years of doing this research, is, and it even turned up in the world of education too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is
Listen to me.
So what does that mean?
Listen to me. If the leader listens, the team members are more willing to tell them what's really going on. We'll tell them what's working and not working. We'll be more willing to try new ideas, etc., etc., etc. And on top of that, they actually will treat clients better the more they trust their leader. Why wouldn't you want to listen? Because listening is the single one behavior that earns the greatest amount of trust.
Did you hear that? Listening.
And how much does that cost a business? 0. Yeah,
Cool.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for asking.
No, it was a pleasure. Awesome. So I'll say bye. Thanks a lot for doing
Bye,
this, Peri.
everybody.